Hello and welcome to English Learning Station. Today, let us explore the five different types of written business communication in the corporate world. They are notice, circular, memo, agenda, and minutes. To begin with, let us understand the purpose of business communication. Primarily, offices, organizations, and industries have to communicate a lot of messages as well as record activities and proceedings on a daily basis. Therefore, these five different types of business communication, namely notice, circular, memo, agenda, and minutes, are the conventional forms to record and disseminate information. Let us check out both notice and circular together because the purpose and the layout of both these written forms of communication are similar. Notice is a written form of communication where the information or the message is put in a common place, such as a notice board or a bulletin board, for disseminating information to a large section of the audience. On the other hand, circular is another form of written communication where the information or the message is sent in the form of a letter or an email for a smaller or a selective target audience. As stated, the layout of notice and circular is similar. Usually, both these forms of business written communication, namely notice and circular, are sent using the organization letterhead. To begin with, the date and reference number are clearly stated on the top right corner. Below that, the content is specified in a very objective, simple language. And below the content, the name and designation of the issuing authority is mentioned. And following that, the authority to whom the copies are sent as CC are mentioned either at the left or the right bottom of the page. Here is a sample notice issued on the organization letterhead. On the top right corner, the date and the reference number is mentioned. Below the title notice, the information to be disseminated is written in a very simple and objective language. The information to be disseminated is that the second and the fourth Saturday of the month of September will be made compensatory working day for all the employees because additional Diwali holidays are being given in the month of October. This is a message to be disseminated to all the employees of the organization, and therefore it is issued in the form of a notice, and it is usually stuck on the notice board or the bulletin board. Below this information, the name and designation of the issuing authority is mentioned, and below that, the authorities to whom the copies are sent as CC, namely the chairman and the members of board of directors, is mentioned. Here is a sample circular whose layout looks very similar to that of a notice. Circular again is issued on the company letterhead. On the top right corner, the date and the reference number are included. Below the title circular, the content again is written in a very simple and objective language. The content is addressed to the board of directors and therefore it is not stuck on the notice board like a notice but then sent as an email or a letter to only the board of directors who will be attending the fifth meeting at a particular venue on a specific date and time. And the agenda is also enclosed for their reference. Below the content, the name and designation of the issuing authority is mentioned, and below that, the authorities to whom the copies are sent as CC is mentioned on the bottom left corner. Now that we have learned that the purpose and the layout of circular and notice are similar, let us explore the differences between circulars and notices. When a circular is printed, a number of copies are to be made because each circular is to be issued to every single intended audience. On the other hand, when it comes for printing notices, very few copies are to be made because a notice is usually stuck on a wall or a notice board. Secondly, a circular goes to the person concerned because each circular is likely to be read by only one person. On the other hand, when it comes to a notice, people come to a notice because a notice is generally intended to be read by many people. Thirdly, a circular is usually printed in a small font size because it is to be handheld by individuals. On the other hand, the font size of a notice is a little larger because it is to be read from a distance. And finally, it is difficult to prove that the circular has reached the intended audience until an acknowledgement is received from them. On the other hand, a notice is more likely to have a legal standing than a circular because a notice is usually posted prominently on a notice board and it is assumed that it has been read by the intended audience. Now that we have learned that the purpose of a notice is usually to disseminate information, there is a special type of notice called show cause notice, which is issued when an employee is found to be guilty of a major misconduct. The show cause notice mentions the allegations levied against the employee and it also asks for a written explanation within a specific time period, failing which it states that an action would be taken against the employee. The next type of business communication that we are going to check out is memo, which is the short form for memorandum. There is a popular misconception that a memo is issued as a warning against an employee, but then that is just one of the many different purposes of a memo. Memo is issued within an organization as a reminder to report information, to make a request, or to recommend an action. A memo could either be sent as a letter or an email and it is documented. Let us explore the layout or structure of a memo. Memos do not use either salutations or closings. The header of a memo includes four details, namely the date, the name and designation of the issuing authority, the name and designation of the recipient, and the subject line. And below the header, the content is written in a simple objective language. It is optional to include the name and designation of the issuing authority below the content. So this is the structure of a memo and let us check out an example. On the header, the date, the issuing authority and the recipient along with the subject line is included. And below that, the content is included in a very objective simple language where it is stated that the employees of a particular department have been continuously reporting late to the office and it is strictly mentioned that they have to report on time without fail. So, this is a memo issued by the HR manager to the entire production department, and it is not mandatory to include the name and the designation of the issuing authority below the content. So, this is how a typical memo would appear like. The next type of business communication that we're going to check out is agenda. Agenda is nothing but the points that are to be discussed in a meeting. This is usually sent along with the circular, which informs the participants of the meeting about the date, time, and venue of the meeting. The purpose of an agenda is to enable the participants to come prepared for a discussion, question, suggestion, and opinion on any issue that might be discussed during the meeting so that a final clear decision can be arrived at without delay during the meeting. Now, let us explore the format or the structure of an agenda. The first point of an agenda is usually the review of previous meeting, if any. Here, whatever was discussed in the previous meeting would be reviewed and the status of the completed and the pending work would be checked. Next to the first point, the other points in the order of priority is mentioned. And finally, the last point of the agenda is any other matter. This refers to any other issue which has risen after the notification of the meeting, which any of the members would like to bring up during the meeting. So, here is a sample agenda, again issued on the company letterhead. The date is mentioned on the top right corner, and below the title agenda, the first point is review of the previous meeting. And next to that, in the order of priority, the other points are mentioned, and finally, the last point is any other matter. Here is another sample agenda. While the previous agenda is for a meeting, this is for a program. Below the title agenda, the time, the duration, the various events scheduled, and the person responsible is tabulated and presented. This agenda gives a lot of clarity both for the dignitaries attending the program and for the general audience. The next type of business communication is minutes of the meeting. Minutes is nothing but the recorded report of the meeting conducted. The minutes elaborates on the discussions held and the decisions taken on the points included in the agenda. Further, it also lists the name of individuals who are assigned with specific responsibilities during the meeting. This is a sample of minutes typed on the company letterhead. On the top right corner is the date. Next to that, the venue, date, and time of the meeting is mentioned. This is followed by the name and designation of the members present in the hierarchical order. This is followed by the discussions and the decisions made as per the agenda on each of the point mentioned. The last point of the minutes as per the agenda is any other matter. Anything that was discussed apart from those points discussed in the agenda is mentioned last. With this, we come to the end of a session on the various types of business communication. If you have any queries, please do post it on the comment section. Thanks for watching.